What's up, y'all? Chevron, the Minding Your Business podcast. Today, Friday, November the 22nd, 2019. We're going to make the third time the charm. The third time is going to be the charm. And I'm very excited about my guest on today. I'm going to introduce him shortly. And we're going to get started with moving forward with episode number 117 of the podcast. Thank you so much for your support, for sharing, for joining in, those that are on the Facebook Live. Thank all of you all so very much for joining and for your time. And you can subscribe and check out the podcast on any of the major podcast networks, whether it's Apple, whether it's SoundCloud, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Spotify, wherever it is, Deezer, wherever you get your podcast content, you can definitely check us out there. And we're excited about this episode 117, brought to you by the Binge Podcast Network at onabinge.com. And you can check us out, themybpodcast.com. But again, today I want to bring in our special guest, the third time's the charm with him. And so, man, I'm very excited to have a great brother, a great friend, man, someone that I've got great respect for, in this local community and beyond. And, one of the things I've said on previous podcasts, man, is, we've always needed the diversity when it relates to here locally with Memphis sports media. Oftentimes, it's funny given the demographic makeup of the city, how, the makeup is then of the people who cover sports. Let me say it that way, is not always reflective of even the athletes that are being covered. And so, man, Josh and his dad, Bob, man, they've been on the scene for a long time, and they definitely bring it. So now that I've got Josh here, man, my guest today is Josh Midgett, Talkback Live with Josh and Bob, or Bob and Josh, however they've got that. But Josh, are you there?
Yes, sir. I am here. We finally linked up in a one-way shape or fashion, man. I'm glad to be on with you, brother.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on, man. We had to go a little bit old school, man, to get you on. Technical difficulties, mostly on my end, and trying to be cute with having Facebook Live on my desktop. So, man, I apologize, man, for the delay in us getting started, man. But I'm definitely glad you're here, brother. So you ready to dive in?
Man, I'm ready to dive in. Got my scuba gear on and ready to get it.
Yeah, man. So let's do it, brother. So here's the thing, Josh. Let's start with this, man, because people who are not familiar with you, and for those that are outside the Memphis market that are listening to this podcast, tell us, about yourself and how you got to this point now where you and your dad, as a family business, our staples here in this local community as it relates to, and I say sports media, but really just media in general, because you guys cover a myriad of subjects and a myriad of topics that come across local, national, and international. But tell us how you got to this point, man.
Well, it's quite a story. Once again, I appreciate the opportunity to come on your platform, man, and chop it up like this. Going back to the beginning, it's really kind of crazy, very unorthodox compared to, I think, how most people got into the business. My father, Bob Midgett, Talkback Live, Bob and Josh, he's been in radio for a long time, and well before I even, was around or was thinking about that type of thing. So I remember I was in high school. And, he hadn't been in that in a while. He was thinking about getting back into it. And he asked me, because he would always see me, I watch Sports Center, and I wouldn't just watch sports like a lot of folks. I would know stats. I could name this person, that person, everybody in the NFL, NBA, all of that stuff. And he saw that clearly I was very passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you know what? How do you feel about doing a radio show? I'm like, what? And,
right.
At the time, I love sports radio. I listened to everything I could.
Right.
Black, white, whoever. And at the time, was dominant around here was Chris Vernon.
Right.
When he was on 730 at the time, and I listened to him every single day.
Yeah, shout out to Chris Vernon, man. Verno.
Yes, sir. Verno. Doing his thing with Grind City. And it's ironic kind of coming back to that later. But then, we ended up at KWM 990, started a show on the weekend, talked to the people there. And, it wasn't, the most glamorous of things. It was an hour show on, I believe it started in the afternoons. Yeah. And what my dad would have me do, he was more used to talking than I was. And I was just over there, I was 17. Okay. And, that's how young I started, which is pretty crazy thinking about it now. Yeah. He's still in high school, but, I believe it was my senior year. And, he just said, hey, here, you get some stuff that you want to read about sports, scores, whatever, just keep it tough. And just read that. And then I'd go from there. I'd read what I needed to read. And he said, don't think about it. Nobody's here. It's not like on TV. You just got thousands of people on the other end of the microphone.
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay. But, it developed from there. And then as we go and I get more comfortable, we had guests on, not to make it too long of a story, but, we had guys like Will Coleman, former Tiger. He was actually right when he was leaving the Memphis Tigers. He came in the studio with us.
Yeah, shout out to Will, man. Matter of fact, my daughter's played soccer with his daughter, man. So, shout out to Big Will, man. He's definitely a supportive dude. Yeah, absolutely. Great guy. And, we had talked to him right before he went overseas, as a matter of fact. And that was a big deal for him because he never really just been anywhere outside of this area, Right. Of course, he's from Georgia. But anyway, we talked with him, and that was a big deal. We interviewed Larry Porter, which was a whole other era of Memphis football. Right. But he was the head coach. Yeah. But, shout out to Larry, Coach Porter, though, because, Justin Fuente won with a lot of his players now. So exactly. He's a great recruiter. Yeah, he's a great recruiter. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. There were so many guys, and that was one of the things we pointed out as time went on. There were so many guys that, Porter brought in. In 2 years, it was unreasonable to think anybody with the state Memphis was in could do anything. So yeah, especially with the lack of money that they were spending and not really investing into the program. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. And so one of the things that helped us take off, Rick Trotter, who was the former PA announcer with the Grizzlies. I know a lot has happened since then, but kind of hooked us up with 730, and John Roser, who's a producer there. Roser, the Grim Roser. Yes, sir. Roser is something else. Oh yeah, he's a clown. And it was funny because this was after about a year and a half at KWM, and we had really kind of gotten into our own. People noticed us. We've had Greg Gasser come on one time and joined us, or maybe a couple times. But anyway, we were looking to get into the sports-centric station. So we, talked to them, and we ended up actually with the time spot right behind Chris Vernon. Okay. After he went off, we came on. Yeah. For a good while. And that was when we started to notice people that would call in and say, hey, some black guys talking sports, Right. You really kind of, you see, at that time, even more so than now, how desperate this area was for that type of thing. Right. Oh, of course. And, it was amazing. And I didn't really think about it at the time. There was nobody that looked like us that was covering sports anywhere. So, Josh, let me stick right there, man, because why do you think that is in a city with our demographic makeup, and even when you look at the majority of the athletes, why do you think that it was so light with people of color in sports media, particularly here locally as well as nationwide? Why do you think that was so light? Man, this is a good question. One of the things that you would hear a lot around here
is the fact that, hey, you're just not qualified enough for this or for that. That was one of the most prevalent things. And even as time went on, right, and we started gaining influence at the station, because toward the end of our time there, or even well before then, we started, being able to bring programming onto the station and helping the station grow as a whole, kind of taking a leadership position there, especially with my father.
Right.
And one of the things we emphasized on was bringing in Black sports voices.
Yeah.
And we brought in several over the years, but one of the things, even talking to them, they tried to get in. A lot of these people had degrees. They went, they were around in certain areas in sports. They knew what they were talking about. They were professional. But every time they talked or went to an interview, they would say, well, you're just not qualified enough. We don't think you would fit with what we're trying to do. And I don't think that was a coincidence. It's not a case of a lack of talent. Even now, even though there are a few voices in the mainstream, there are a lot of talented people that leave here because they don't get an opportunity. And I think that's just straight up racism from the powers that be that don't want to open that door.
Yeah, and that's that's crazy, and that's even a whole nother subject that we could even get into, with that. But I was interested in your take on it, man, just because, I've always wanted to ask. To me, it's always interesting when you got a certain demographic. You got a certain demographic of athlete, and then if you listen to radio and that sort of thing all day long, it's just this platoon of guys that. A lot of times, there's no knock against them, but guys who no one would ever pay to see them do much anything, much less play any kind of sport. And so there's nobody, really locally who's, you got guys on here that are former attorneys, and guys who are just glorified fans, right? But guys who never had really any kind of real time to really study what's going on here, and can't really relate to the athlete because not only do they not look like them, but they don't even have that same type of upbringing. And so all of that's just interesting, man. So anyway, Josh, so you start this and you're working alongside your dad. How is that? Because a lot of times you don't see, particularly from us, where we have family businesses like that, where, we're working with each other and, particularly you working with the parent, how is that working with him and how has he helped your career?
It's an interesting dynamic because when you talk about people that do shows together, usually, there's always going to be like a disagreement when it comes to something.
Right.
So that's where it's a dynamic because, it's your father's like, don't, at least it's, in my mind, even though we're pretty open when it comes to that type of thing, and we never have to worry about, being disrespectful or nothing like that. But, there is, it's amazing because especially in my early years doing this, I just had to kind of follow his lead, for a long time. I kind of see how he did things, how he could navigate certain situations, whether it be things like a belligerent caller on the line, or, when it comes to business, or even when it comes to stirring up the audience nest to get a reaction to a certain degree.
Right.
All of that is part of the game of being in radio. And, kind of where your voice sounds, there's so many things I can think of off the bat. So that's why I've learned a ton how to research and take notes and be organized when you're on. All of that is what I got from my father doing that. Where I think I'm pretty decent at this point.
Yeah, no, man, you're well beyond decent, man. You're well beyond decent. I mean, what you guys bring to the table every morning, is top notch. And talk about the voice piece of it, because when I started this podcast, one of the things that, if there's anything that I felt like I really wanted to change or hone in on, or I really, quite frankly, didn't like, was the sound of my recorded voice. So talk about that. Did you go through that period of not really liking your voice, or was it always something that you felt confident in from the very beginning?
Oh, man, even to this day, as far as hearing myself, it's just so weird. I know you know how it is. Like, you listen back and you're like, oh man, why do I sound like that? But other people, you know, they say, man, you got a great voice for this and that. It surprises me. I'm like, I do. You know,
Right.
I appreciate it.
Right.
You know, because I hear my dad's voice, especially like, man, if I only, you know, if I know I got a lot from him, but I'm like, man, if I could have got a little bit more depth like these guys, you know, I'll really be on the topic. But that's really it, man. You kind of learn as you go. You listen to yourself. You see how, you know, certain inflection with certain words, how you say things. I know, especially early on, you know, when it came to, you know, for my age, I was always relatively well spoken, but with certain things, certain slang, you got to say, okay, you don't want to do this as much, you know.
Right.
With this, you want to sound professional. But at the same time, you don't want to sound like you're trying to, you know, be, you know what I'm saying.
Right. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
You still want to remain authentic, and you know, I think you know, when you see your show, when you see you know, the podcast that you do with Justice, great. You know, I mean, he's like family to me. When you look at what we do with Dominic and the Startup Life and the other shows on the Binge, you know, we try to make sure that we bring the authenticity. And all of us do different things, whether we, you know, some of us edit more than others and things like that. But at the end of the day, you know, you try to make sure that you've got great content that's relevant to the people. And one of the things that you guys do, I think, you know, very well, even more so than even the people we mentioned earlier, is, you know, the diversification of your content. You know, you'll jump into a myriad of different subjects, you know, like I mentioned earlier, and speak to it with intelligence. And that's not something that's always easy to do, is to pivot. You know, sometimes it's easy to be on ESPN and kind of talk about the same subject just on multiple platforms within ESPN all day long. So like someone that talks about, like even Stephen A., he'll talk and he's just making the same points just on different platforms all day long. You know, but he's not jumping from kind of one subject to the other. They're all in sports, but he can't jump from the, you know, say the Colin Kaepernick situation and then talk about Memphis politics or talk about a trivia question or something like that. So the way that you and your dad navigate that, man, to me, in my opinion, is top notch.
Oh man, well, I definitely appreciate it. And we've gone through several evolutions, so to speak, throughout the years because, you know, if you think about it, even we were at KWM for that short time, you know, doing sports, doing news. It was kind of like whatever kind of came my way, even though we were both sports focused. Then coming to 7:30, we were definitely 110% sports. But the interesting thing about it, and I think this is really where, you know, we started getting a lot of attention, was one, which is probably the biggest moment, you know, for us, period, was when Chris Vernon left 7:30.
Okay.
And, you know, we talked about 7:30 Fox Sports at the time. We had no clue it was happening. And we see them every single day. Right. And we had to hear on the radio that it was going on. So we literally went down to the station to see, hey, what's going on? Because they were the only people in that building, us. Okay. So, you know, we began to wonder, okay, what's that for us? And we talked to them, and he talked about his reason for why going to 92.9, which is no longer there anymore. Right. But why he went at the time. And so the main reason I bring that up was, at that point, once he left, he's talking about a huge following is gone. And there's literally no other programming. Right. It's just us and the guy that's the program director there trying to say, hey, where are we going forward? So he took the 3 to 5 spot right after that. But as great of a time as that time slot as that is, you have to rebuild the fan base. And I think what started getting our attention toward us was because we not only were just black and talking sports, we knew we were talking about, and we would tackle issues that others would not. Yeah. I think when you talk about the racial aspect of sports, I know we'll get to that soon because there's definitely a lot of stuff when it comes to that. But, you know, when we would tackle those issues that everybody else on all the other stations would be scared to death or would never even mention or ignore. They say, hey, this this is interesting, and it started getting a response. We didn't do it for that reason, but we did it because it mattered to us.
Right.
And whether the callers would disagree, because we would have plenty of that, they would respect where we were coming from to that degree. So it was kind of amazing how that grew from there to kind of being a force. And I'll say one last thing that I just want to get in.
Yeah, please.
I remember, and my dad talked about this plenty, one of the things when your black media, especially at that time, was the respect from the local team, or the lack thereof. And I remember specifically it was Tigers football, ironically, as bad as they were. And you would call and try to either get tickets to give away or get media passes to go to the game. And the guy that was over at the time was no longer there. They sent to several people since then. But he literally would ignore my father's phone calls at the time. When he would say he would do this and didn't do it and all that stuff. It got to the point where my father at the time, when this was Twitter was just kind of going here, on Twitter, we would see him tweeting literally when my father's trying to call him on the phone to see about the game. So he said, you know what, I'm sick of this. I'm confronting him on Twitter and not in the DMs either. So on the timeline, he's like, hey, look, this dude right here at so-and-so is ignoring us because we're black media. And then a whole bunch of people like, whoa, what's going on here? So then, he's like, hey, you should have probably mentioned it. He's like, no, we want respect. And if you're going to ignore us, we're going to make some noise. And that's just the way it was. Exactly. Even if it came to calling them out on the air, it would be done to expose what was going on behind the scenes, even a little bit with the Grizzlies. To people now, some of them that are still there, anytime my father calls about anything on me, it's like, hey, what you want? We got you. Because
right.
one, is scared to death, and two, you've earned their respect.
Right.
So sometimes you have to go a little bit.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Sometimes you got to go through the measures to get respect, and that transcends industry and even from personal to professional. Sometimes that's just what it takes, man. So, our guest today, Joshua Midgett of Talkback Live with Bob and Josh and the Talkback Live Network. Josh, let's get into a few subjects, man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you may have heard of this kid, James Wiseman.
I think so.
Yeah. Just in passing, you may have heard about a kid that I don't know how big he is. He may be a little bitty guy that's over at the University of Memphis. Maybe he's just a student. I don't know. Yeah, he might just be a communication student over there. But share with me. I know you've been giving some commentary on that, man, for the last couple of weeks as that scenario's been going on. And of course, MYB. If you're not familiar with the scenario. The University of Memphis men's basketball team, one of their top recruits, and he's projected to be the number one pick in the NBA draft, if not certainly within the top three. James Wiseman was, and now recent developments, was suspended a total of 12 games. So he's got 11 games, I guess, left, or I guess 10 games now since they played last night. But he was suspended because now head coach Penny Hardaway, at the time back in 2017, was a booster at the University of Memphis, and he was a high school basketball coach. Paid money, apparently $11,500 for James Wiseman's family to move from Nashville, Tennessee to Memphis, Tennessee. And because of that, and there's a whole lot of details going on with that, but there's been a back and forth with the NCAA for the last going on month now. And so, Josh, what's just your take on the whole situation? Where do you see it landing? Just, give us a little flavor for that.
Well, it's so much to this. It's a very interesting situation. And man, whenever this is all said and done, not just with this situation, but with Penny Hardaway's time in Memphis, there's so much movie material. It's unbelievable surrounding this. It's really amazing. But to get into the Wiseman thing, I just think this is another example of how pathetic the NCAA really is.
Fact.
And I think this has really exposed them to a degree like never before. Because think about this. Everybody already knew, what the NCAA was and how, biased they are in certain instances over others, selective punishment. Because let's be real, you got coaches that have been caught on wiretap by the FBI that are still coaching like nothing happened. They talk about Will Wade at LSU for
Right.
And you're going to come after Penny Hardaway when he was not even a coach in Memphis, paying for a family to come move to Memphis while he was coaching at East High School. If anything, which that's kind of been a situation as well. The NCAA, maybe they should have an issue with that. That's maybe, even though they already went to court.
Right.
That Kenny's final season at East.
Right.
So it's really unprecedented how pathetic this is. And then on top of that, and I saw some pundits, after I mentioned it, started bringing it up on the radio and on social media. But I thought about it when I first saw, the 12-game suspension that came out a couple days ago. That, hey, look, you're talking about not only the suspension, which I can kind of understand. I'm like, okay, not saying that's fair either. But, hey, it is what it is. But when you talk about him having to pay $11,500 to a charity out of nowhere, that is unbelievably ridiculous. And to me, it's really taking this to another level because you got people like Jay Williams from ESPN attempted to start a GoFundMe before the NCAA right after he said he started one.
Right.
Says, oh, yeah, you can't use any crowd.
You can't do that.
So I'm like, here's what I say. And I know some people are like, and I don't bring race and everything either. But you cannot tell me that it does not play a factor to some degree here. I always think there's different types of racism, right, where it's overt,
right,
and it's obvious, and they don't care whether you think so or not. And then there's, where folks don't really notice that they're doing it.
Right.
And I don't know what the category to put this in, but you're talking about an African-American young man that's in school, that's a supposed student athlete, as they keep trying to tell us. Yet, you can't make any money off your name. You can't make any money off of your fame where you should be able to he can make a multi-million-dollar deal with Nike right now if he wanted to, but he can't do it. So you're going to tell him that he needs to pay $11,500 to a charity and money that had nothing to do with him coming to Memphis.
Right.
It's just utterly unbelievable. And I just don't know. I mean, I know Memphis is appealing the situation. I don't know what to be done from that point. Hopefully, they pull that requirement. That may be what they're aiming for, where he doesn't have to pay that money. And hopefully get a reduction in suspension days. But that is unprecedentedly unbelievable. I can't even say that enough. And you put it.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Let me jump in real quick with you, Josh, because you touched on several different points. So here's kind of the deal with it. So one, this was coming up this summer. One of the reasons he didn't play, I believe, this summer, and this summer they went to Hawaii, I believe. No, I'm sorry, the Bahamas. They went to the Bahamas. They played. He doesn't play. They say he's got a ankle issue. Okay, so an ankle issue. And say, okay, so I mean, all this through all the summer, through all the fall. So I think this came up some time back, and I think that Penny and David Rudd. David Rudd's a bit of a cheerleader. He kind of he's not going to mess anything up with the Golden Goose there with Coach Hardaway, so he's going to roll with him. I think they threw up the double bird to the NCAA. And the NCAA takes a step back and says, "Oh, okay. So y'all, if you're going to be that way, then, we're going to respond." Now, the NCAA has no credibility in any of this. Matter of fact, you spoke to some of the hypocrisy, quite frankly, behind that. Here's the thing. Here's the when you say overt, this is overt stupidity. Okay.
Yes.
When you are the NCAA, and for the 100 years, you've been touting about the student athlete and the protecting amateurism and all that type of thing. And then you come in, you have the audacity to come in and then say, a student athlete, 18 years old, 19 years old, and you penalize him. I mean, hell, if you go to court now downtown, people are getting sued for $11,500 with no way to pay that back. We're grown folks. You go down to 201 Poplar. I mean, hell. So now you're talking about a kid at the University of Memphis who's a student, right? Who had nothing to do with $11,000 was paid by a then booster who had no idea he was going to become the head coach at the University of Memphis. What booster eventually becomes the head coach? I mean, if you look at Juwan Howard, after him next, I mean, he's been gone from Michigan. Who knows how many student athletes he's helped at the University of Michigan. Is he next?
Exactly.
When Steve Alford showed up at one of these schools and, I mean, the thing is like you say, when you talk about the witch hunt, there's Patrick Ewing at Georgetown. Do you think over the years, he's never helped anybody get to even when he was not the head coach? So then now he becomes, so again, I think there's something else with that. The NCAA is completely ridiculous. And to say then they come back and say, well, you can't get it through the GoFundMe. All right. So how is an amateur college kid supposed to pay the $11,500? Then they come back and say, oh, well, he can make the donation to charity and he can do it anytime within the next 4 years. Because they already know he's going to go and, I mean, hell, his first contract's going to be 3 years and $60, $70, $80 million plus whatever endorsements he gets if he's the number one pick. So it's just all about it's a money grab. And then, it's just there's no credibility, and then you're impacting this man's life, you're impacting the team. I mean, it's just completely ridiculous, man, and it's uncalled for. But I think some of it did come from when if the NCAA is working with this and you want to try to get them out your hair, then you deal with them over the summer when they first bring it up. But I think you call their bluff and you already know that they're stupid. So then they're going to go down the line. What I'm hoping doesn't happen is I hope it ends, Josh, and then that's going to be it, right? So I hope that what happens is, this is the end of it, whether they go with the appeal or not, and maybe it gets appealed back some games. I think what could happen is it gets appealed where he can come back for the Tennessee game, because again, that's where the money's at. You go have a national TV game with ranked opponents, more than likely. And so, there's a lot of money involved in that. So I think what you'll see is if it does get, repealed back, he's going to be back for the Tennessee game.
That's true. And I see my dad's talking. We talked about this. I see what you're bringing up there about Mike Miller. And is the son of the coach Penny or the school? I think that's kind of a good question, because if you think about it, and it's kind of when I talked about the racism piece. It's not just with Wiseman. I think it's more towards Penny than anything else, because if you look at how bold Penny has been, and it's not like he's been just like a shooting off at the mouth here and there.
Right.
He's just being himself. But, and he's not like a huge, outspoken person anyway.
Right.
But at the same time, I do think with the way he's doing things, not just the NCAA, but I think the Blue Bloods as well are looking at this like, how dare you?
You know what?
You come in here, with your Nikes and your hoodies, you know what I'm saying? Well, we got our khakis and orthopedic shoes on. How dare you come in here and look cool? And relate to these players. How dare you come in here bumping,
Gotti and Moneybag Yo. You know what I mean? But
and knowing these people personally.
Well,
how dare you do this? Yeah.
Well, here's something else I'll add to that, Josh. And I'm going to make an analogy towards the Italian mob with this. So, the Italian mob, if you watch Casino or Goodfellas or Godfather, any of these movies, right? They only let in, you can only be a member of the mob in the pure sense if you're fully Italian, right, that they can trace your mother and father's lineage back to Italy, right? Other than that, if you're part Italian and part German or whatever, you can be an associate, but you can't be a full-fledged member of the mafia, right? Same thing happens in this coaching rank. So then you got the mafia, and now you've got a former player who's a great college player, an all-time great NBA player who comes into their ranks, who's younger. He's 6'7", 6'8". He's smoother. He, like you say, he relates to the players. He's not 65, 70 years old walking into your living room. Penny's, just now getting towards 50, right? Yeah. He's a multi-millionaire 1,000 times over, right? He's still, even now, Penny Hardaway hadn't played in the game, NBA game in 12, 13 years. He's got one of the top selling shoes. I mean, his shoes sell up there with Yeezys and Jordans and all of that, right? Yep. So there's a lot to hate him for. Then he walks in the door and he's bold. He's talking about winning. He's getting into it with Rick Barnes at Tennessee. He's talking about we're going for the national championship. He's not giving the coach speech of, he's not Josh Pastner, right? Where he's coming in, everybody's good. Even the school of the blind is good. Right. You know what I mean? How Coach Pastner used to come in. So he's not coming in humble like that. He say, hey, listen, we're coming in, we're going for the title. And as someone that's a former player and someone that, competed, you love to hear that. And if you're on his team, you love to hear that. But I think it rubbed that mafia, in this case, the mafia being these current and former coaches, the wrong way. And I think some dimes got dropped, for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. I wouldn't. So that's just kind of my thought on it, for sure. So.
Yes, sir. And I don't know if I just noticed I was on mute, by the way. I hit my mute button.
Oh, no, it's all good.
But I don't know if you know this. I got a stream going in one of the Tigers groups as well. Yeah. And it's a whole lot of stuff coming up here. One guy said to your point that the mafia is the Power Five. Right. So I think that's a great point. Yeah, but
it is.
It's crazy, man. And I just think it's a combination of all of this into one big package. It's almost like they're showing Memphis, look, you need to stay in your place and accept it, or else we're going to do this to you again. Going to find another reason to come up and punish you and try to put you down where you belong, so to speak. So it's a shame, but I do think the best revenge is winning.
Yeah.
And despite everything else, because this is still an incredibly talented team.
Right.
Even without Wiseman for the stretch. And another thing, just to kind of get, on the edge, I know we got some other stuff to discuss too, but another thing, just when it comes to Wiseman, it's ironic that the 12 game suspension ends close enough to March Madness where he can get some games in and they can use Wiseman's likeness and name and everything else to draw people to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. Like we said earlier, it's a money grab. So at the end of the day, you got to make sure that they're not going to do anything that's going to impact the money. So right now, the timing of it all, where you can do it, non-conference play, you go into some of the conference play and that sort of thing, and then like you say, he's ready. Possibly even if they appeal it for the Tennessee game, and then definitely for the conference tournament and then the NCAA tournament, where the money turns up even more. And so, so what Penny, not to say he's got to be to watch out for it or anything like that. I think he should be himself. But I think that by operating the way that he does, I think he realizes, and if he doesn't, he soon will, that there's going to be the witch hunt for him, and everybody's going to be looking for him in the fall. So he's going to have to be Trump tight. But I think at the end of the day, competing against him is going to be tough for a lot of these coaches, because even right now with this James Wiseman thing going on, it's not affecting these younger recruits, right? they're looking at it. Matter of fact, it's giving the University of Memphis a lot of good publicity just by going through it, you know, and also seeing that Coach Hardaway standing up for James, as well as the team and the university standing up for him. And that's going to go a long way with the parents of these next classes that are coming up, you know what I mean, that are seeing this. It's like, yeah, this can happen to anybody, but it's great to see everybody being so supportive of James, even including the fans, right? Because University of Memphis is unique. It's not like these little schools and these little college towns where it's very limited. You know, there's Tigers fans all over, and then this city bleeds blue when you talk about Tiger stuff. I mean, it's the kind of dominant sport here is men's basketball. So, for sure.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great point again. Like, I saw Cole Anthony, who's in North Carolina right now, but he literally made a public statement after one of their games that he can't believe what's going on with James Wiseman. He thinks it's ridiculous. Patrick Mahomes was out there tweeting about the James Wiseman situation. I mean, it is transcending everything.
Well, not only that, I don't know if you mentioned it, but Andrew Lang, who's running on the Democratic ticket for U.S. president. Yeah, Andrew Lang got up. Yeah, Andrew Lang said it was asinine. I mean, I thought he was going to use Mike Tyson's word to say it was ludicrous. You know what I mean? I was waiting for Mike Tyson to just come on and say it's ludicrous.
One thing we know about Andrew Yang, if he got to help by giving some money,
yeah,
you know, he ain't afraid to do so.
Now, Andrew Lang is you know, he's a tech background guy, but he said, you know, the NCAA, I mean, this is crazy. It's ridiculous. So anyway, man, you know, we'll see what's going to happen as it relates to James Wiseman, University of Memphis, man. But I appreciate your take on that, Josh. Let's jump into something else, somewhat kind of related, but even deeper. So last weekend, former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick, who's been out of the NFL now for 3 years. Apparently, the NFL now is in the business of setting up workouts for its teams. You know, so go figure that. So, and they don't tell him. So they set up a workout to invite teams down in Atlanta. There's a whole big fiasco of him going down there, and then, you know, apparently at the last minute over some waiver, he changes the location. He wants his own receivers. He has his speech to the media, doesn't take any questions and that kind of thing afterward. And it's been debated. Stephen A. Smith's been getting roasted all week with some of his comments. You know, people are bigging up Mac and them, those folks and that are on First Take. Stephen A. gets into it with Terrell Owens, a former NFL receiver. Yesterday, they're going back and forth on that very same show. So I know you've been talking about it on your show, Josh. So give us kind of the update where you see this whole situation playing out and kind of, you know, your thoughts and commentary on the Colin Kaepernick situation.
Well, here's my thing. I went into the weekend thinking that he should be on his guard in Kaepernick. And he was, you know, I'm pretty sure he was, because it was very weird. You know, even talking with my dad about it off there, you know, he was like, man, you know, this is weird. You know, he set up a workout, you know, you kind of tell him at the last minute that he has to agree to it, and this, that, and the other. It almost seems like to look bad. Mm-hmm. But there's a couple things that were weird. Before I just get straight to the Kaepernick thing, it's weird because the NFL had almost kind of moved past it, I think, and they're positive. Mm-hmm. Because nobody was really talking about that anymore, even in the league.
Right.
You got a league where, I mean, for the first time ever, there are a ton of black quarterbacks that are elite.
Lamar Jackson, you know, of course, Cam for a long time was. You've got
Mahomes.
You got Mahomes. You got your boy Watson.
Watson.
Watson down there. You got the boy Brissett there with the Colts, you know, making some noise.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, so you got them sprinkled throughout the NFL now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So it was kind of weird for them to initiate this. You know, I don't know what else is going on. I feel like there's something that even we don't know right now going on behind the scenes between both parties that would precipitate that happening. But as far as how Kaepernick handled it, when I saw it, I'm like, this is just bad. It just is, man. To me, it looked like he didn't want to work out for them in the first place. It looked like to the national audience, and I think even a lot of Kaepernick supporters, that he doesn't really want a job in the NFL. And I really am doubting that right now. How much does he really want to be in the league? And to be fair, I don't know if I can blame him for not wanting to. But my problem is, you know, on one hand, you hear all this stuff about all the efforts that are being made to help him get some type of workout or some type of fairness to get back in the league, because everybody around him is saying, hey, he wants to get back in the league as bad as possible. So my question is, number one, why? If you
right.
Because they clearly don't like you, and you don't like them, and yet, you know, you say how racist they are, you say how ridiculous they are, you say all this, and I don't disagree with it.
Right.
But then you come out and say, hire me.
Right.
What?
Yeah. Well,
and that's just, the logic is, in my opinion, very flawed. And I just don't know. I think he lost a lot of support because of there's still a lot of support for him, but I think he lost a lot of support for the way this came.
Well, here's my thing, Josh, and I'll compare this to just an everyday person that's at work. So if you work for a company and whether you violate some kind of policy or you protest something within that company, right? And let's just say you are fired, you're terminated from that company because you're protesting something. Now, of course, you have an issue and you run down to EEOC and all that, but then you sue your company, okay? You have a lawsuit that's out there for some time for your company, all right? Now, most people, right, once you sue, you kind of sever ties once you decide to sue your company, okay? Once you decide to sue your company, you're kind of severing ties. You're not necessarily looking to come back and work for that company. No, I don't care how much they were paying you. I don't care what it was. If that company doesn't support causes that you support that are more of civil rights issues, which I commend him for, the thing is when you decide that now you want to join that organization, again, that blows my mind. Then when you want somebody's job, and I say somebody's job, Josh, because it's not his. He didn't create it. He wants a job that someone else could go create for him. You go under the pretense that you're on their turf. So if they say be in Atlanta at 2:00, we're going to have some receivers down there, and you're going to work out for these or in front of these teams, and then from there they can make a decision as to whether you can, whether they want to pick you up or not. And here's the thing: once at the end, when you give that your kind of "I have a dream" speech at the end, where you're, talking about how you've been blackballed, you're out the league for 3 years. Call my agent; he's right over here. We're not running. Roger Goodell needs to, stop running and hiding. They need to stop running. The company needs to stop running and hiding. And then you want to go work for that company? Like, that's crazy. Like, imagine someone here locally said all that about FedEx, and said that about, Richard Smith or Fred Smith or whatever. Fred Smith needs to stop running for me and let me come work at the hub, because I want to come in the hub. It's been 3 years since I've tossed a box at the hub, and, they took away my shift, they took away my benefits, and, I'm being blackballed, and I'm here. And then you come there and FedEx and UPS and DSL and everybody else is going to watch you toss boxes. And then you hoping one of them picks you up, right? And so, but then you go talk about the CEO of the company and all, you think you finna get hired? No, you're not finna get hired. So now my other thing with this too, Josh, I want to get your thoughts on this is the NFL has never, typically when you're trying to, the NFL doesn't hire players. The NFL is an association, just like any kind of trade association. And then you've got each conference that has teams. Teams hire players, not the NFL. Now it rolls up to the NFL because that's the association where the money funnels down. right? But you are an employee of the team who then is a member of the National Football League. So when did they start setting up workouts? Because here's the thing. If a team wanted Colin Kaepernick, they'd set up their own workout with him. And then you look at him and you'd evaluate him. And the thing is, what people can't understand is that in sports, there's a ton of politics. You saw this with Carmelo. You've seen this with players now. It's not just because other NFL quarterbacks are scrubs and he's better. That's true. You can't deny that. He's better than probably half the quarterbacks in the league. But, and I'll say this and then I'm going to shut up because I want to get your take on it, Josh. But no NFL team wants CNN, NBC. They don't want Savannah Guthrie from the Today Show and all these other folks showing up talking about everything but football with your backup quarterback. Nobody's supposed to know who the hell your backup quarterback is. Now, when you bring Colin Kaepernick in and let's just say he's your backup quarterback, he's not even touching the field, but now all the media wants to talk to him. And then if he says something that is, riveting or controversial, whatever, now you got to deal with that. Then if he's your starting quarterback, now if he plays well and y'all are winning, that's one thing. But if he's struggling through or he's throwing interceptions and he's fumbling the ball and doing all this stuff, they're not even going to be talking about the game. They're going to be talking about how all this relates to the stances he was taking. Do you get that kind of feel or agree, disagree with that?
Yeah, I think it's a great point because, at the end of the day, it almost reminds me of, and I know the situation is different, but I think the circumstances are similar, is if you remember Tim Tebow, and when he had that insane situation with the Broncos, that run that didn't make a lot of sense football-wise, but it just kept happening. And, won a playoff game against the Steelers, and then all this stuff happened. And the support was out of this world. I mean, he had his own fan base. It wasn't even fans of the Broncos. They were Tebow fans.
Right.
And what kept him from getting a job, I believe, in the league, and he didn't really do anything wrong, his fan base, because he was not going to be a starter. And the Tebow circus would have overtaken everything else. Yeah. So I think with Kaepernick, despite how good his cause was, I think that's something that, people, you have to kind of think without emotion and more business, Right. And even though I do think the blackballing was wrong. Yeah, no, I agree with that. The NFL went about it was wrong, and the way they're still going about it is wrong. Right. NFL, to be honest with you. But,
I mean, they're like,
there's another side of it.
Yeah, and they're like, what's funny about it is it's like they're like the husband and wife, right, that divorced. You know what I mean? And but they're not really moving on from each other. You know what I mean? They really don't like each other, but then they don't really want to see each other with somebody else. So they kind of, there's this tit for tat constantly going back, and nobody's really got the heart to really just move on. They're miserable.
What happened this past weekend? What happened this past weekend was them almost like jumping back in bed with each other.
Right.
And then it didn't turn out right.
Right.
And they realized why they didn't like each other in the first place.
Right, exactly.
And they get into an argument.
Right, they get into an argument. That's a great point. That's a great analogy, Josh, because they get into, they forget, they remember all the things they loved about each other, right? But they forget what drove them bat crazy, right? And so what happens is, Colin and the NFL get there, they're husband and wife, and then all of a sudden the wife says, Colin says, well, hey, we're going to stay at the Embassy Suites. And the wife says, no, I like Marriott. No, we go stay down here at the Marriott. And so, you know what I mean? And so now they start arguing over the hotel. And then, you know what I mean? And then like him, I got to have my receivers. Well, no, we got receivers already there. And I got 28 teams or whatever showing up. It's like, well, I don't care about your 28 teams. I want to, you know what I mean? So they start bickering. It's like they in the car. It's like, where we go stay? Where we go to eat? You know what I mean? What side of the bed you go sleep on? They you know what I mean? They start getting into all these arguments, and then they both stand back and realize, you know what, this is why I really don't like you.
That's it. And look, that's what Cap, as long and as tough as I thought it was, Cap's press conference after that workout said, see, this is why I don't like you now.
Right.
That's what I can't stand about you, NFL, is this. But I still want you.
Right.
So that's
after all that.
I can't stand you. You lie, you cheat, you steal, you smell, you breath stink, all that stuff, but I still want you.
Right. Man, I guess.
Like, no, what's wrong with you?
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. And honestly, so let me, if I can ask you this.
No, please.
The whole thing with the Kuta Kente shirt.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I know everybody's, in this whole deep, symbolism and all this. When I saw it on the YouTube stream, I bust out laughing. I'm like, this dude really went to roots and got a Kuta Kente shirt on.
Right.
What does that mean? I'm like, okay, are you saying NFL shop you put on? What
Maybe,
what does that really mean?
Well, maybe he's going to change his name to Toby. I don't know. I mean, that was the next thing. I was thinking about maybe if they ask him if his name's Colin, that he'll say it's Toby. But here's the thing, Josh, with your question. When you show up, you go back to my analogy from the job standpoint. So you show up to a job interview. Now, everybody, NYB, many of you have been on job interviews probably multiple times and that sort of thing. You don't show up to a job interview with a Kuta Kente shirt on and expect that, I don't care whose job, I don't care what the people look like that's hiring you, where they're from. I don't care if it's a big business, a small business, your partner's business. If you show up to interview with them in a shirt that can generate controversy, a controversial shirt, just like here locally, as much as these shirts fly around, you wouldn't go to a job interview with a Memphis AF shirt on. Right? You know what I mean? You just wouldn't do it. So he goes to a job interview with a Kuta Kente shirt on. You're drawing attention to the wrong thing. They're supposed to be there. You got an opportunity now with teams in front of you, and if you're wanting that job, my thing is if I were him, what you would have been doing is getting with people to try to start your own league. So then you can say whatever the hell you want. But when you keep trying to get into you can't fit into somebody else's job without doing it their way. You know what I mean? If I want to come work for you and Bob there at the station, I got to come do things y'all's way. I can't come in with my way. You know what I mean? And I walk in the door and I'm telling y'all what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. You know what I mean? If I want to do that, I got to go start my own station.
That's it.
Right? So that's my thing.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what I think. We're in a dangerous time because, I think, especially with the backlash with Stephen A., right? Because I kind of feel like some of it is because he's so demonstrative when he does things.
Right,
I think that's kind of what is fed that reaction. But, and plus preconceived notes about him already.
Yeah.
Prior to this. But if you really listen, and I always try, and no matter the situation, I don't want to let me being black or anything, any situation, precursor, dissuade me from what's true and what's not, and whether people like it or not. And to me, I think what he's really trying to say at the root of this is, and even myself, not just to speak for him, but myself too, as a black community, it's dangerous to say he can do what he wants. He can wear what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And they should still hire him. We really need to think, okay, why is that okay? That's not how life works. That's not how life works in any situation. I think you broke it down perfectly. If you go to, somebody want to work for you, Ron, and you in your office there.
Right.
Your high-rise penthouse office that I see you in right now. And somebody comes in there and they want to work for you, and they come in there with no clothes on whatsoever. And they say, look, you just going to have to accept me for who I am.
Right.
And they they sit on your table.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, I don't have to accept nothing. I don't care how black you are.
Right.
You will get your naked self out of my office.
Right. Exactly.
So I'm just saying that we get blinded by emotion.
Right.
That we're not even really seeing what's really happening here. And that's why I say, man, as much as I support Kaepernick and everything, it's not like I'm just throwing him in the trash either.
Right.
I think a lot of moves he's made have been, he's either getting a lot of bad advice or it's just not smart. You know? And I feel like it's not helping his case with him not talking.
Right.
You know, throughout this whole process, I've always felt that he's been way too quiet for me.
Yeah.
You know, come out and say something, man. Speak, do an interview. Everybody wants to talk to you. You know,
right.
And, you know, I even heard, you know, not to always go back to Stephen A., but he said he literally invited him the first take to have the whole 2 hours to say whatever he wants to say. Right. How could you not take that? I mean, come on now.
I mean, you know, and the thing, and then we'll move on here, Josh. But I mean, I think that, you know, the whole thing with Stephen A. is, like I said, he's going to have a bit of a target on his back. And there are some things that he leaves out in his argument, but he does try to articulate as best that he can. Now, him and Terrell Owens, I think I was talking to someone this about on Facebook earlier, was, you know, him and Terrell Owens arguing back and forth about who spent time in the streets, quote unquote, and all that. I thought that was laughable, especially considering that, you know, both of them are multimillionaires. So for them, you know, defining what in the streets means, meaning that, you know, they've got a cousin that's still, you know, kind of out there that they talk to once a year, or, you know, they drive through the, you know, the old neighborhood every, you know, couple months when they got to get to, because a lot of times, you know, like you go to Chicago to get to the White Sox stadium, you got to go through the hood. You know what I mean? So maybe that's their thing about staying close to the streets, or maybe, you know what I mean? But those are not street dudes. So, you know, that kind of piece of it. But I don't think he's completely wrong in anything that he's really saying. I think people more want him to be the voice, and they feel like he's got a big platform, and so they want them to be soft on him because he's got such a big platform, and they feel like if he's hard on them, that everybody else gets a right to then be hard on. And I don't know if that's necessarily fair to Stephen A. Smith, and not to feel sorry for him at all. I mean, he's a $10 million guy, but you know, he's in a tough spot where people are trying to paint him to be the voice for everybody else, and he's not. Never has been, never will be. So yeah, that's my thing on Stephen A. Real quick, you know, speaking of, you know, the Joker movie came out, so we've been talking about clowns for some time, and so the one that's in the White House, you know what I mean? I wouldn't have, if the Joker movie had starred Donald Trump, I don't know, it might have been just as good. You know, if it wasn't Joker in Phoenix and it was President Donald Trump, it might not have been it still might have been as good. So you've got President Trump again, the impeachment stuff, and you have people dropping dimes. It seems like his whole presidency, he's had one speech hearing after the other of people dropping dimes on him. And, you know, so, you know, President Trump is in hot water now because, you know, first they thought it was Russia that had got involved with the 2016 election. Now intelligence is suggesting that it's Ukraine. And so he tried to pressure the Ukraine president to go after Joe Biden's son, even though, you know, he didn't do the same for anybody to go after Ivanka Trump when her emails surfaced the same way he went after Hillary Clinton. And so what's your take on the whole impeachment thing? Today he said he being the president, welcomes the trial. And you know, if he's impeached, of course, you know, he's not immediately removed from office. It'll go before the House of Representatives, who will have to vote on that impeachment. And then if he is impeached, then the Senate votes on whether to bring up any charges. And if with that supermajority vote, if any charges are brought up, then his powers are removed as president. And then the vice president, everybody else in his administration is then removed from office. Talk to me a little bit quickly, Josh, about your thoughts on that whole scenario and maybe where you see it landing.
Oh man, well, that has been quite the circus, and I've seen a lot of that. I mean, really, you can't help if you had the TV on at some point. They are making sure you see the impeachment situation. You know what? I don't know if I've ever seen. It almost makes you wonder if he's made of like Teflon or something, because how much evidence do you need? I mean, it is unbelievable. The amount of people, his entire presidency, as you just laid out, Ron, is going back to the former FBI director James Comey and the book that he's written since. Going back to the evidence of going back to the evidence of Trump and Putin colluding in the investigation in the election. Going back to now, with every Ukraine ambassador possible that has any type of credibility, that's been there for years, that have really shown a lot of those people that they're nonpartisan.
Right.
To come out and say, hey, he did this, he did that. Sometimes, though, when I hear them talk, I guess they have to do this legally, but I just wish they quit dancing around it.
Right.
Where they say, well, it wasn't exactly. Stop saying that, because at that point, he's kind of giving the Republicans something to jump on.
Right.
Like you look at Jim Jordan, who was like their attack dog, I guess, who was trying to make everybody look stupid that's up there.
Right.
Even though he fails a lot of the time, but he will try to use anything to make one of the people look stupid up there. So I don't know. I'm kind of tired of the whole thing, but there's so much evidence that this president is corrupt, that he is terrible at his job, that he's stupid, that hair is just, that he's orange. There's evidence of everything. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it's going to take to get him out of there.
Well,
maybe this is it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, one of the things I like about what he's done is I think in some cases he's mobilized us. He's caused us to think. I think under President Barack Obama, I think a lot of things got laxed because of the historical nature of his presidency. And I took some issues with some things that he did and said as well. But one of the things with President Trump, I think I think he's opened our eyes, hopefully as a country, that we've got to take these things more serious. When we start electing reality TV show real estate speculators as the highest office in the country, that's something we got to evaluate as people. Because here's the thing: he's never been a business owner. You think about it, he's a trust baby who speculates on real estate. And then when it doesn't go right, he files bankruptcy and leaves everybody else holding the bag. So he's used to manipulating government for his own personal gain. You think of a real estate speculator, and I'm not painting them as negative, but a real estate speculator is looking to buy low and sell high, and however he or she can do that, right? That's what he's always done. And so he's always used government to try to manipulate it for his benefit, whether it's in capital gains, whether it's in to get the government to pay for certain things. Because if you're building a Trump Tower, you want the government to pay for the easement and freeze your taxes for 10 years and do all this other stuff. So he's used to manipulating that. So then when he becomes, the president, he's not going to operate any differently than the way he always has. But I think that one of the things that I like of what he's brought is that sense that now a lot more people are doing a lot more thinking, that hopefully that can lead to more righteousness here down the line, whether it's with this upcoming election or in the future, that we've got to be more serious than having people like that be the leader and the voice oftentimes for America, particularly in foreign policy. So we'll see, but I think the Democrats are coming. They were coming for his head. He checks Nancy Pelosi all the time, man, which always brings a chuckle. He said she was crazy as a bed bug today. So I don't know who President Trump been hanging around. He might have been in Memphis.
I'm
You're
telling
here around some cats, you know what I mean, checking like that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's one thing about his presidency. It's brought a lot of, laughs, and I guess you can say it the wrong way, though. I mean, you don't want to sit and laugh at the leader of your country or the free world, and other countries laughing at us. It's been an embarrassment, and it's been very weak. So hopefully, something comes to this whole impeachment thing, and hopefully, if it doesn't, then somebody steps up and beats him, because I can't even lie, I'm a little bit worried about the crop that's competing against him.
Right.
And that's just me, but hey, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, nobody's come up from his party to try to challenge him, that's for sure. Now, obviously, that's going to open up the floodgates, but, and that's one thing for people to start looking at. If he is impeached and if the Senate did have a supermajority vote to strip him of his power and remove him from office, him and Mike Pence and everybody else, what happens? And the thing is, I don't think anybody ever really explores, that I'm a process kind of thinking that guy. So I'm looking at, okay, what happens, so you cheer, or at least a lot of people will. Some people won't. Some people will be disheartened and will not like that. Some people will, cheer and dance in the streets. But either way, what happens to the country, in terms of your leadership, and who steps up in there, and, what you don't want to do is, exchange, one for somebody else who may even be even worse. And some people say, well, I can't imagine anybody being worse if that's how you feel. Everybody doesn't feel that way, but if you do, and you don't, there can always be worse. And so you definitely want to be careful there. So anyway, as we wrap up, Josh, man, because again, I appreciate your time, brother. And your thoughts on kind of the new city council. You got some new blood on the city council. Michael N. Easter took over District 7. From your boy over there. JB Smiley jumping in. You got Chase jumping in. You got some new blood. Dr. Jeff Warren jumping
Logan.
in. Yeah, Wanda Logan definitely. So what's your thought on kind of the new city council and what they face going forward?
Well, I think there'll be substantially less talk about your mama. You know what I'm saying? like my man did.
Right.
They went viral. But honestly, I think it's a good thing, man. Hopefully, I know the voter turnout that is has never been great, but I think it is good that those that did turn out wanted change.
Mm-hmm.
And because I think there's some need, and more than just change. So I think some younger people in there that can bring some new ideas and some updated stuff to this city that needs a lot of updating in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
And hopefully, and especially, in the community, because one thing about it, with Jim Strickland, I think he's done a good job in the periphery of the city. You know what I'm saying? And continue to do so with certain areas that need development. He talks about downtown. He talks about, crosstown concourse and what they're talking about doing on, I think it's Maine, the $1 billion project they're talking about, and the Cook Convention Center, which is going to be, the Memphis Convention Center. I think some company's going to be the sponsor of that place now. But all of that stuff is great, and I think greatly needed. I even heard something about updating technology of downtown as well. I think that's all good, but I think with the city council and the new people that are coming in, hopefully they will bring some of that money to the communities as well, because you can't just do one without the other.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You talk about with schools, and you talk about crime and all that stuff that's still way too much in the negative. When you talk about that, and seemingly climbing, especially you talk about youth violent crime. That was kind of striking to see. I think 53% increase or something like that.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
On the show a few weeks ago. So you can't just improve in one area and forget the other, because eventually some of those people will be, oh, I'm getting robbed every day. I don't know if I need to stick around. So it's it's just being real. You know, one affects the other eventually.
Right.
And
exactly.
hopefully, you know, JP Smiley, Michael and Easter Thomas, Rhonda Logan, people like that have been in the communities fighting for change. It can continue.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would add to that, you know, one of the things that hopefully the city evolves into is that there's an investment in infrastructure and attention that isn't just limited to, you know, within, you know, a certain mileage north and south of Poplar and Walnut Grove. When you start looking at downtown and midtown, that hopefully you get injections of equity into other areas of the city, and not just, you know, because you got some people in the city who never travel more than, say, 2 or 3 miles north or south of either one of those streets. Park up until, say, Highland, and then all of Walnut Grove and all of Poplar. Some people never travel. I mean, they may go to, like, you know, like they go down to South Haven to do this or do that. They go for a certain task or event, but they never, you know, you really travel outside of a certain mile radius of those 2 streets through the middle of the city. And so you see a lot of the investment kind of do the same thing. A lot of it's in those same areas, starting downtown from the river, coming out through East Memphis. And so hopefully the new city county or council members bring a new flavor of holding true to what they ran on, the platforms they ran on, which is expanding that investment and that attention beyond, you know, just downtown and midtown and those areas. Yeah, and that's important, but there's a lot of communities that could use that same level of attention and that same zeal around edification. And hopefully those folks can do that. And like you say, hopefully they're not talking about each other's mamas and all that type of thing, and they can actually get some things done. So, and I'm bullish on them. So, you know, so again, as we wrap up here, Josh, man, you know, we talked earlier at the beginning of the podcast about, you know, how you got your start and that sort of thing. So, you know, what are some best practices for those that, you know, have an interest in media, they got an interest in sports media in particularly? You know, what would you recommend for those folks? You know, they could be young people that, you know, are really looking to get involved, or maybe someone that's maybe looking to make a career change. They've been doing something else, man, and now they want to get into sports media. You know, what are some best practices or some things that you'd recommend?
Oh man, well, there's so many outlets now. We talk about media and getting your voice out there and things of that nature. I'd say invest in that, you know, because with today, there's so many mediums. You know, we talk about YouTube or like yourself on Facebook. There's so many podcast platforms like the Binge Podcast Network and like other areas that do podcasting. Spreaker, we know, like we do podcasts, live podcasting and through there, and they put your shows on other outlets. It's so easy to get your voice out there. You just if you do that and invest in it, be consistent in whatever you're doing. You know, don't worry if you see like 2 or 3 views on something. You know, and nobody's gonna start off, you know, with 1,000, you know, 7,000, 10,000 people listening.
Right.
Just gotta continue to get the word out there. Be consistent and be consistently good. Get better. Study yourself. Yeah. Things of that nature. I think that's important. And then, but a lot of people, you know, when you talk about, not only bring him up because of, we brought him up earlier with Stephen A. and other people that are in the media that have been there a long time. What we have that they didn't was this stuff we're talking about now. Mm-hmm. And you can almost build a resume for yourself and build your own following and use that if you want to get into the mainstream. Yeah. You know? as well. So there's so many ways to put yourself out there. You never know who's watching or listening.
Right.
And, they hit you up and take you to the next level. So
yeah, exactly.
Take advantage of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm definitely with you with the consistently good. You just want to put out good content as much as you can and that's relevant. And don't get so caught up on the quality. Like today, with you and I trying to get this coordinated, don't get so caught up in the minutia of trying to make it perfect and perfection, because people only know what you show them, and I'm open just like you are, I show them the real, but, focus in on the content and be, like you say, be consistent, because a lot of times in today's society, people can learn to like your stuff just because they're hearing it all the time. You're putting out good material and they're hearing it often, enough that, they develop a connection to it. And so you want to be able to do that. A lot of times I see people ask me, and they even ask me about this podcast. It's just because I come every Friday. I'm not the best. I'm not the best on the Binge Podcast Network. I'm not the best podcaster out here. But I'm always coming at you. So I always want to put that foot on the net, and be heard and try to come with as good of content as I can and continue to grow and learn from myself. And you and Bob are great inspirations on that as well.
And I'm gonna tell you, to that point, it's almost, as long as, me and Bob, my dad, have been doing this, what we're doing now is even more of a leap, because as long as we were in radio, to kind of make this jump to exclusively online, kind of building our own footprint on here, almost like a media company, so to speak. It's kind of what we're trying to do. And I tell you, it ain't easy. It can almost be kind of scary because it's kind of a shock to the system, where, you have to set up this whole thing, and it's a lot of work, a lot of hours, sleepless nights, stuff like that, to get it set up the way we have it now. Yeah. And the payoff is just there, because I think about, we started in June or whatever, and, we get like 100 folks, and it's like, oh, that's a win, because it's new. Right, and then, well, now, we're averaging, 40,000 a month. You talk about, around 2,000 a day between my show, the sports show in the afternoon, and our morning show. And that's just in a few months. So you just got to be consistent. That's it. And consistently find ways to improve as you go.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So our guest today, Josh Midgett, co-host of Talkback Live with Bob and Josh, Talkback Live Network. Man, listen, I appreciate you joining on, man. How can people catch you every day? Josh, let them know. Tell them something.
Yes, sir. Well, you can catch us every day on Facebook Live. Just follow us on Facebook. I believe Ron tagged us in the description there. It's Talkback Live with Bob and Josh. Just search for that. Like our Facebook page. Check us out. You can see all our stuff there. Also on Twitter at Talkback Live. That's one word, at Talkback Live. The morning show is from 8 to 10 a.m. Monday through Thursday. And my sports show, Talkback Live Sports, is 2 to 3 p.m. Monday through Thursday. So y'all can catch us there. Also, on your mobile device, you can download the Spreaker app. That's Spreaker, Spreaker. And once you download that for free on any device you have, just search Talkback Live, one word, all together, Talkback Live, and you'll see all of our programming on there as well, where you can listen to us. Podcasts are available on Spotify, iHeartRadio app, and Google Podcasts.
Yeah, excellent, man. You know exactly how to do it, man. So, and then that information is going to be in the show notes for those that are listening to the podcast. Check out the show notes, and you'll be able to connect from the links there directly to, as Josh has stated. And I encourage you all to connect and support what they're doing in the media here as they continue to expand and provide voices for us all. So, Josh, again, man, salute to you, brother. Enjoy the weekend. if we don't speak before, man, make sure you enjoy Thanksgiving. I know you're going to eat. I know you're going to eat plenty and enjoy yourself, man.
Oh, yeah.
And definitely shout out to you and your family on that, man. And if I could be a resource, definitely hit me up and let me know, man.
Will do, brother. I appreciate you and this platform. Shout out to Dominic Lawson as well.
Yeah.
Does great stuff. He's wrote some articles on our website. He's a contributor weekly on Talkback Live Sports. You catch him every Tuesday on with me at 2:35 for the Business of Sports segment.
Yeah.
As well. And shout out, and I meant to post on this page. I just saw it today. I don't know how I missed it yesterday. Big announcement Dominic made.
Yeah.
For his show.
Yeah.
Major, man.
Yeah. I mentioned that at the beginning, or maybe at one of the times when we were trying to get everything together today. But yeah, I've mentioned that I just think the word of Dominic and his wife Kendra, man, with what they're doing and how they've endured through everything to make it happen. And sometimes I know Dominic can be modest in how he operates at times. And some people may think he's extra in some other things, man. But I've always admired his grind and his spirit. That's what he does, and he always is great at connecting, man, and kind of sharing and communicating. So, and like you say, him and his podcast were the inspiration behind me doing this for Minding Your Business. So, I always make sure to shout that out, man. So I appreciate you doing that, Josh. Again, man, great weekend. Thank you so much for delivering great content here on my platform, man. And I definitely want to connect because I think there's some other things we can be doing out here. So, anyway. Give your family the best. Shout out to Bob, for engaging with us here on social media. Everybody engaging, and man, just have a great one, man. We'll talk soon.
Okay, bro. Appreciate you.
Okay, man. All right, bye. So, man, shout out to my guy, Josh Midgett, joining me today on episode number 117 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. And look out for the Minding Your Business brand apparel coming out. We're going to come out with the first round of t-shirts that'll say there's no business like minding your own. They're going to be available at themybpodcast.com for just $19.99, coming in various colors. Your favorite color is sure to be out there. I think 6 colors they're going to come in. So shout out to Ernest Fields and his team at Millionaire Grind, millionairegrind.com. Checking that out and empowering our apparel brand that's launching. So listen, Champ Ron, the Minding Your Business podcast. It's been episode number 117. I'm going to come back to you next Friday for Black Friday. You're going to want to join me then. Until then, go be great. Have a great weekend. Be great for yourself, your family, and your community.